And pay more attention to the colonized situation here of the blacks first.
Welcome back. Overstanding Vision, Maj K Be. Welcome back to the Pegasus Studio. Again, I would like to promote the Pegasus Studio. People can come down here, take classes with Lawrence Stefanelli down here at the Pegasus Studio and go through a course to become a new producer and then a producer in the long run. You can learn how to use the equipment and take out the equipment, and I recommend that all of us, black and brown, Latino, Indigenous people, come on down here and utilize the opportunity to have our voices heard on this network if we can. So if you do have the time, come on down, contact me. I would be willing to go back through the courses with you. If you need someone to accompany you, that's part of the goal of Overstanding Vision and what we hope to offer as we serve the community. So again, thank you for tuning in, and someday I look forward to watching your show on Channel 13 when I can actually afford cable, which is ironic. Anyhow, so this show is going to begin with a explanation of the Overstanding Vision perspective on quote-unquote white privilege. Okay, but before we get into that, I'd just like to read the mission statement directly. I'll read it directly for you of Overstanding Vision and of Overstanding Publishing Productions, essentially, and what we're trying to do. So here we go. Let me break it down. An alternative media engaged in literary and visual and salient self-defense against the willful ignorance of the mainstream media and government. Okay? So essentially, the promise that we can offer today is that today we are offering an alternative on the media. Okay? So we are going to attack the media through a few different ways and offer our own version of media in a few different ways and reimagine who we are and to re-educate ourselves in a few different ways. One is through this television show. One is through networking face-to-face and building with people as individuals around the community on a face-to-face basis. Three, is through the literary thing. So the literary is the newsletter, Crossroads Critical Commentary, that was dispersed last summer and will be out again when the weather gets warm. We'll be out hitting your door. You'll see us handing off a newsletter, a way for you to contribute your story and to participate, okay? We're not looking for money, we're looking for stories. We're looking to share our concerns, and we're looking to share what works, and we're looking to build with people and move forward, okay? And the other way is we're tackling the social networks and the internet. So we have a website, we're supporting ourselves in education on the website, on Facebook, okay, and on YouTube. And we're just beginning to become live on Twitter, and I'll give you more information about that when that comes to base, because we do have a new generation that we have to be cognizant of that is very, very, very good with this computer stuff. They're very computer savvy. So we have to take that seriously. I'm not saying that the Egyptian revolution, so-called revolution, was because of Facebook, but I am saying that there is inspiration in the fact that the more access that people have to the global network of the internet, the more education that they have access to, and that is a reality. So spreading access to the internet is in turn spreading access to education. It also, though, is spreading access to negative advertising and media influences. We just have to be steering people in a correct dimension, and a correct dimension is always a dimension that supports the people and doesn't hurt people. It's pretty simple, all right? And education and the truth often supplies that, all right? Anyhow, And self-defense is very relevant, all right? So there are many ways that have been suggested in other shows and maybe suggested again today as we go through the newsletter eventually, to actually stand up and defend our people and to support our people, all right? And last show, the Black Panther Party set out a strategy, guiding principles on how to begin to do this, okay? And you will continue to hear on this show many suggestions. And you will continue to see, hopefully in the community, many of these suggestions being implemented, all right, from myself and many other conscious people in the community, all right. There is an attack, however, on Black and brown people, Latino people, and Indigenous people by the mainstream media. I'm not going to sit here and explain it or argue about it because that's going to take up relevant time that I have to talk about solutions on how we can combat it and to offer the solution to you now by offering you alternative media that innately combats it. All right. And when I say innately, that means it naturally. It just does it because it does it. All right. That's just the reality. So, our purpose is to promote and engage oppressed people in general and Indigenous, African, Latina descendants in particular in conversation and radical action. Okay. Now, we support oppressed people in general. That's pretty much it. Okay. If you are of African, Latina, and Indigenous descent, your oppression is very often ignored. All right, so we are here to specifically highlight those voices that are contemporarily that are now in today's day being ignored. And those voices, okay, again, I'm not going to sit here and argue about it, but those voices are African, Latina, and Indigenous people's voices. All right, those are the voices that are traditionally being ignored and are not represented even on this public access channel, let alone in the mainstream media. All right, and do not get it twisted. Barack Obama does not represent black people on the mainstream media. All right, that's just, and you can, again, I'm not going to argue about that shit either. Look that up. You can see for yourself. I support him as far as he is an inspiration to our children to know that they are gods and that they are kings and queens if they choose to believe such, okay? But the way that he has chosen to utilize his presence on this planet is not something that I can advocate for beyond the age of a child, okay, a very young child who needs that immediate inspiration. As soon as that child's old enough to be shared conscious lessons and so forth, which is pretty young, then we move beyond that stage, okay? That's where my support depletes completely. And I recognize and share with the future the truth, okay, of what participation has gotten us in the past as oppressed people and the truth of where participation will lead us into the future. Moving on. And again, conversation is relevant. Okay, we do have the race talking circles, and as I've said in many private circles, we should have the gender talking circles. We should have sexuality talking circles. Okay, we need to have circles to talk about how we're gonna be sensitive. Okay, and promote the skills of people that have been labeled with physical and mental disabilities. These are things that are reality. These are things that are for the future. This is an evolution, okay? So conversations are necessary. The Martin Luther King community build is necessary, all right? But again, as many people have said, words without action, I'm just going to say it's a mockery because that's what it's felt like in my soul to me, is it's a mockery, all right? So I tend to try to every day have my word be my bond, to be born as a being, all right? Anyhow, radical action, okay, is coexistent with conversation. But is the more relevant, we want to say that, the way we need to move forward. And radical is not violent. Radical does not mean violence. That's a lie that's been taught. Radical means at the root. So that's to get at the root of an issue. Do you understand? So when we're talking about dredging in Tompkins County, they're talking about dredging, which is there's been too much of a buildup by the golf course of crap and a buildup in the inlet of crap because of all the commercial infrastructure, all the buildings and businesses that have been moving in, okay, such as this Island Fitness and all this bullshit for these bougie people, okay? So this buildup is creating pollution, and they're talking about how to drain this excess water and pollution, okay? So they're talking about going in and draining it with these big machines and doing all this shit, dredging it, okay? Now, looking at the root of this problem, at the root of it, what is creating, okay, question and answer, what is creating the flooding? that is leading them to need to dredge. Yeah. Obviously, it's the buildup of infrastructure, of commercial infrastructure, from the diamond shop to different clubs to the Boatyard Grill to random shops along there. That buildup of infrastructure is leading to this problem, to this dilemma. There should be a fucking golf course there anyway. That should be natural land for us to go and enjoy and to utilize as part of our nature without exploiting it. Okay, to play fucking golf. Golf is the most asinine sport I've ever seen in my life. But that's another subject altogether. All right? So looking at the root of it would be to say, let's deconstruct all these buildings. Let's say we can no longer, put what do they call it, a moratorium or something like that. Put one of these things in effect. You can no longer construct on this land. So no more new buildings, basically. That's the easiest thing to do for people. No more new buildings. All right, the government can do that shit. All right, and then the next step is really progressive if we want to be Ithacans, okay, is to take back and to regress the land there, to regress the businesses there in the buildup, and to start removing the businesses and revitalizing the land. There's a fellow called Aldo Leopold, okay, who inspired me, a little skinny white dude, inspired me, okay, who looked into true preservationism. Okay, and preservationism is preserving the land. Conservatism, conservationism, is conserving the land. So it's using a little bit of honey from that tree, but not too much. Preservationism is leaving the honey a fucking alone for the bears. Okay? Now, Aldo Leopold was a preservationist, and he went back and he actually took it to another level of recreating nature out of something that had been constructed. All right? So essentially, we could go in, blow up, whatever the fuck, bulldoze all the bullshit bougie establishments along that little tier and recreate a viable landscape, okay? And even land that could be utilized for farming and so forth. And that could even be the land if these folks that way out in the country really don't want a bunch of brothers and sisters and poor whites from the inner city coming out there and gardening. But that's an even more accessible use of land with a great water supply that could be utilized in the future, rather than as a golf course, rather than as a bougie restaurant, okay, rather than as a diamond shop, rather than as bars and clubs and other useless establishments that are inherently racist and classist anyway in themselves, okay? These are alternatives. All right, so that's radical thinking at the root of it. What's really causing this social problem or social phenomena, and what can we really do about it, addressing the actual issues at the root of the concern, okay? It's not building gardens in an urban center. It's offering space in the country where we can grow so that we can actually feed our people in a viable sense. Okay, that's radical thinking, all right? And creating skills so that we can. Okay, and we know how because we've been indoctrinated away from utilizing the land and participating with it and having our ecology met. We have been indoctrinated against that as peoples. All right? Our goal is to unify, and this is unlearning what the oppressor has indoctrinated upon us, comes through reimagining who we are, comes through re-education and alternative education, and comes through action. Actions of solidarity, okay, and actions of movement. That's what it comes through, all right? And being present. The easiest thing we can do, all right? I know we can't all go out there today and establish a nonprofit and go out there and follow through the hoops, write a big fucking grant and make a lot of money and do this and that and then offer some services to our community. But the biggest thing we can do today is be present. Any day of the week, this is a rule. We can be present. If there's something going on in your community by one of the established organizations, or if there's something going on through a family connection, okay, or through a community organization, or through community connections in your neighborhood, be present. Show up. If there's a meeting at West Village, okay, about building a garden, be present. Show up. Have your voices be met. Have your concerns be heard. Have your successes be heard. Share your information. Network. Okay, and we can begin to build a bigger collaboration and a bigger network that supports each other. And where I can offer a ride to somebody, somebody can offer me advice, and somebody can offer my daughter some food, okay? And this is the reality. Where I can offer some historical perspective, someone can keep me humble and offer me a contemporary perspective. This is a reality. We can learn from each other. We can share with each other, and we can support each other. We can sustain each other. That is true. So that gets to the next goal. Our goal is to unify, organize, and electrify the indigenous, African, Latina nations, okay, in a collective, cohesive Historical political consciousness. So essentially, what all that means is solidarity that recognizes the past struggles and successes as we move forward. So not an ignorant solidarity, not one that ignores the struggles we've been a part of, not one that ignores where we are today, okay? Not one that ignores the temptations of our current society for us to work against each other, okay? We're talking about moving forward and overstanding the past as we overstand forward and recreate and reimagine, all right? And essentially the main goal is to create a cohesive revolution towards creating a better world. And a better world is a world that exists. Basically, a better world is pretty simple based on where a lot of people are today. A better world based on where we are today, as I pointed out in the past, would simply be a world where everybody's basic needs that we're taught, at least in the U.S. in about second grade, where our basic needs are met of shelter, water, and food. And right now, those needs are not met. I know that basically those three needs could be met through solidarity. I know that there's alternatives to this capitalistic, exploitive fiat system that's infesting our globe. I know there's alternatives that will definitely support all people in having at least those three essentials met. At least those three essentials met. And I would qualify education, okay, access to peace, access to comfort as part of those as well. But at least the three that are not being met at current standards, okay? And peace. Peace upon this planet. That's it. Peace. So we're going to delve in and look over Crossroads Critical Commentary newsletter. The intro newsletter came out, and following that, Brother Chango and I created the criminal injustice issue that focused on, again, the criminal injustice system in the United States, globally, and in Tompkins County and Ithaca, New York specifically as well. This was prior to the murder of Brother Sean Greenwood, but it was very relevant and telling, and many of the suggestions that come up in this newsletter would be very supportive in stopping injustice within the injustice system and looking for alternative ways to hold people accountable and equitable ways to hold all people accountable who actually commit crimes, whether it be white collar, blue collar, or street crimes. All right. The first article that was highlighted in this issue was an article titled Stolen Children. I'm going to read you the preface of it, and you can read the rest of the newsletter more closely online at www.overstandingvision.info and go to Crossroads Critical Commentary Newsletter, and it's all on there in a form that's very readable and accessible to people. All right. First article, Stolen Children. The family court system is one of the most repressive agents in our society. The court is used to perpetuate Jim Crow practices of postbellum apprenticeship, all right? And postbellum apprenticeship is the forced release of black folks' children into white custody, all right? In both the historical and the contemporary, there were and are psychological, emotional, and monetary benefits to whites for the government-sanctioned stealing of children, all right? So essentially, following the end of slavery was a period called Jim Crow. There was sharecropping that took place, which is essentially an extension of slavery, with a little bit of money compensation at times, or essentially the same compensation in a house and clothing, possibly, and food that was compensated during the times of slavery. And during this time, many government agencies went in, and there was the Freedmen's Bureau, I believe, was one of the major sponsors in the South that went in and actually removed, legitimately on their part, removed black and brown children from their homes and put them in the care and the custody of sharecropping organizations and of white people in general. All right, so what I'm saying here, what was being said in this article, is that the practices of the Tompkins County family court system and this court system in the United States is essentially a continuation of this in the new time of 2011. All right, and there are still psychological, emotional, and monetary money benefits that come to whites and organizations in the foster care system that receive black and brown children disproportionately. Okay, Essentially, in Ithaca, it came to our attention that the family court system is often one of racial injustice and class injustice. That is something that is a reality. A young mother came forward, and many other people have come forward since then to share their stories, either on the street or in writing or in film, of their experiences with the family court system and injustice within it, and their confusion with it, and disenfranchisement in trying to be confident and consistent parents, are trying to retrieve and get their children back from the family court system and foster care system. Okay. I want to briefly discuss a few points of this specific article, which you can again see on the overstandingvision.info website. And you can see here, I believe, slowly panning in the background that may be readable depending on how big your TV is. But again, it is available on the website, and we will be redispersing these newsletters with a new newsletter coming out this summer, probably around August, to highlight and hit off the beginning of Black August celebration. Okay. So essentially, continuing on the injustice system and a mother or father who has had their children or child stolen from them by the family court system and placed into the custody of foster care or a group home at times. Okay, what a parent deserves to know. A parent deserves to know what exactly he or she needs to do to get their child or children back. One, okay, exactly. All right. Two, that there's a credible and consistent support as he or she makes the changes that they need to make to get their children back or their child back, okay? And that the children are cared for in an emotionally and physically safe environment within the foster care system or a group home or home wherever they end up, okay? Also, that their effort to get their child back is credibly acknowledged by the return of the child, okay? So essentially what that means is that when a parent puts in the effort and jumps through the hoops to get their child back, that there actually is the exchange back to the parent of the child. They get their child back, okay? That needs to be followed through so that the parents in the beginning can be trusting of this process and the process can be trustworthy, all right? A few things that are necessary to be noted are the impact of the foster care process on the mother. Okay, one, it's an uncomfortable setting and experience of visiting her child, okay, in someone else's home, or the father visiting his child in someone else's home. Okay, two, the emotional struggle of working every day, oftentimes, and missing your children, okay, because you don't get to see them or communicate with them often when they're in the foster care system. Okay, and three, lack of knowledge of how your children are being treated. Right? There's often a lack of knowledge on the parent's part when their child is taken away and put in foster care of how their children is being treated in the everyday, day-to-day. Okay? And the imposed feeling of mistrust for the support system in place through the lack of credible results. Okay, essentially, there's a growing mistrust that comes to the parent that has had their child taken and has repeatedly been frustrated with the system and has not had their child returned to them and is continuing to go through the hurdles of the system. Mistrust is built up in the system, and that is the structure that is pointed out and placed in front of us as our support system in the United States. Okay, so it's our option that's there. All right, therefore, one suggestion is creating alternative options. We'll get to the suggestions in a moment. Right, first, I want to cover the impact of the foster care process on the child. Okay, first of all, there's often cultural incompetency and insensitivity within the foster homes. Okay, foster homes generally are and traditionally are white, middle class, and working class families, all right, that are taking in children to either for a number of reasons, okay, but there's often cultural incompetency. They're also unaware of the diversity of culture that does take place throughout beyond the limited culture of the white so-called race in the United States, okay, and then there's insensitivity at times and straight up racism and bigotry, okay. School jumping is an impact to the children, okay, in terms of their education and socialization, all right? Many children go from home to home, foster home to foster home, and therefore they're put in different schools, all right? Often the school that a child ends up attending at the foster home is different than the school that they would have attended in their home with their parent, all right? Mistreatment, neglect, sexual and physical abuse, and emotional distress are among the realities for children in the foster care system. And there are a number and a plethora of statistics and case studies and personal anecdotes and accounts
of abuse that has taken place on a number of fronts in the foster care system in the United States, all right? And the imposed feeling, again, of mistrust for the system and of parents, all right? Now, there's the same imposed feeling of mistrust that the children learn, that the parents learn, that the adults learn through the fact that they aren't returned to their parents, that they're not seeing progress, that they're not being supported, okay? That often the environment that they're in the foster care system is the same or worse than the environment that they're with when they were living with their parent. But there's the added injustice of not being with their parent, okay? Or their parents, all right? In addition, all right, there are times where there's mistrust for the parent that is installed and created, either through talking of the foster care parents, or through just the reality, or just through the idea of thinking that my parents aren't here, they don't care about me, they're not working hard to get me back, because of the constructions of the system being unable to be understood by a child. And that leads to a mistrust of one's parents and in their ability to look out for them and their fact that they care for them as a child, okay? Some suggestions, all right? What we can do to begin to counter the injustice in the family court system within Ithaca, New York, and in the United States in general. One way is to support people in the situations that you're hearing that people are in, such as mothers that are trying hard and struggling out there, fathers that are struggling out there and are still having their children limited from them, or their children stolen from them. Okay, take the time to support people in this situation by listening to their story, standing up with them, accompanying them to court appearances, and supporting and educating them and learning from them, okay, while we work to make the best for all of our children, all right? Two, we can create support groups of mothers and fathers who have been through similar situations with the family court system, all right, and similar injustice with the family court system, not to fight the family court system, but to stand up with each other and support each other, either in sharing parenting skills, healthy food skills, education skills and facts, but also being a support network, all right, and a community support network of people that have gone through a similar experience and have true empathy, all right, and truly want to support you and help each other through helping ourselves, and help ourselves through helping each other, okay? Next, it would be to document the steps that you have taken as a parent, all right, if you are going through the situation right now yourself, document the steps you have taken to retrieve your child back, document everything, okay, in a legal way, all right, and try to contact the legal supports and the social supports and the people such as Miss Leslie Jones, all right, with STAMP and Green Guerrillas, all right, who's also an independent attorney, Mr. Gino Bush, all right, who's a community activist and an elder in our community, all right, and Mr. Peacock, who is a local young attorney in the amount of time he has. These are the people, and there are many other people that are out there that could support you from the Black and brown community, all right, in the legal sector of this battle to retrieve your children, all right, because there is a war on Black and brown children, and it is occurring in this country, and it's real, all right, it's nothing to laugh about, it's real, okay, and these are plausible suggestions, these are real suggestions on ways that we can stand up and combat it today, all right. In addition, this is very important, become or promote, all right, and Shanae Milton is doing this down at DSS, promote or become an African American or Black foster parent and help to decrease the reality of Black children being raised predominantly by white foster parents. Okay, we can step up, and within the system, we can join as foster care parents or as adoptive parents, and outside of the system, we can start to create family networks, okay, extended family networks, okay, and community family networks. So if a family is in need and is in danger, okay, we can go in and support them. This is already occurring in our urban settings and in our original people's families, but it can continue to occur, and it can occur on a bigger scale so that we're not losing these children. Okay, we can come together and support each other and network. If you know somebody who's struggling, all right, and needs support with their children, then you could find somebody, you know, myself even, or other people out here that would have time to offer parental support to a child, and you can have them take that place and support each other. Okay, this is what it means to have a community raise a child. Okay, this is what it means to have a village raise a family. This is what it means. Okay, and we need to start. And these are some basic suggestions. All right. The next section in the injustice system focuses literally on the incarceration system in the local area, and the prisons that are encompass the local area are called the Elmira Hub. We put a list of prisons in the Elmira Hub. These are not all of the prisons that are in this general area of New York State, and definitely not all of the prisons in New York State itself. Okay, but these are many of the prisons that our family members in Ithaca, New York, and Tompkins County would be locked up in, and some of our family members from the city, also New York City, may be locked up in as well. Okay. Please, as it says in the newsletter, please feel empowered to visit, to carpool, to offer transportation assistance to a person to visit a family member at one of these correctional facilities. Okay, and feel free also to communicate with these people that have been stolen from us. Okay, and to take communications from these people and to share them and to get their voices out there as well. All right, because these voices and their input are being lost and stolen at the moment, and they're necessary input in our society, especially for Black and brown people, because we're disproportionately stolen, and our voices are disproportionately stolen. Okay, especially Black men and Black women, and we're losing these voices in our community. All right. Again, there's Books Through Bars. That is a supportive organization that is housed 115 Martin Luther King Street above Autumn Leaves, next to the Workers Center. And there's a place you can donate books and talk to people down there about connecting with the prisons and sending care packages, the restrictions, the rules around care packages and visitations and so forth. In addition, Leslie and Jason are working with Stamp and Green Guerrillas to support the connections with the Elmira Hub and support the connections with the people that have been incarcerated in this area. So continue to connect with them. All right, and their contact information is also available in the newsletter and on the overstandingvision.info website. All right, again, Green Guerrillas and Stamp, Southern Tier Advocacy Mitigation Program. All right, and there's also OAR that is out there that is, I believe, still receiving some funding to connect with people that are incarcerated in the county jails and I believe in the prison correctional facilities as well. All right. So on that same subject, to a certain extent, moving along, the next focus in the newsletter is the petition to abolish slavery. And again, I will just read what we had stated at the time, but we have attached a petition to change the 13th Amendment, to change it, not abolish it, so that we can take immediate action to let our concerns be heard by the political and legal system. We, however, do not believe that the system will change for the people. Rather, we believe in creating the alternative foundation of the people to support each other as we take on the discomfort and challenges of social transformation and deconditioning. Please feel free to pass along the petition to our mayor in hopes that she or he will send it to the proper politician above him or her. All right? So essentially, what we're saying is we do not believe that a petition is going to actually change the system of the prison industrial complex, okay, and the lobbying and promotion of it in New York State and in the United States, okay? And as we know, the prison industry in the United States is far greater than any other prison industry around the globe. Okay, that might be changing soon, but it is definitely the case right now, all right? This petition, however, is to amend or adjust the 13th Amendment as it commonly and currently reads, okay? It currently reads, all right, that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Okay, so essentially the 13th Amendment said, 1865, okay, that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude could exist. Great. Except as punishment for crime convicted. Those are the party shall have been these are people that have been incarcerated, that are locked up. These are prisoners, okay, inmates, whatever you want to call them. These are the people that can still be slaves or involuntary servants, and they are. As an article later in this newsletter points out, all right, the prison industrial complex, millions and millions and billions of dollars are being made off of the slave labor, okay, and the involuntary servitude of people that have been incarcerated. And these people are disproportionately Black and brown people in the United States, still continuing, okay, the institution of slavery in 2011. very legitimized still by the government. Okay, now it should read, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, not even as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Okay, that's what it should read. All right, so that's the petition for that, and that's the input on the 13th Amendment. All right. The newsletter went on to highlight artwork of a local artist named Pink, okay, who created some beautiful artwork with the people at the Learning Web, and independently himself created some beautiful artwork to support Overstanding Ithaca and Crossroads Critical Commentary. Okay. The next article that does come up is the prison industry in the U.S., big business, or a new form of slavery. And I'm not going to read this entire article. Again, it is on overstandingvision.info in its entirety. All right, but essentially a quick snippet that prison labor has its roots in slavery. After the 1861 to 1865 Civil War, a system of hiring out prisoners was introduced in order to continue the slavery tradition. Free slaves were charged with not carrying out their sharecropping commitments, cultivating someone else's land in exchange for part of the harvest, that's sharecropping, okay, are petty thievery, which were almost never proven. And then they were hired out for cotton picking, working in mines and building railroads. From 1870 until 1910, in the state of Georgia, 88% of hired out convicts were black. In Alabama, 93% of hired out miners were black. And in Mississippi, a huge prison farm similar to the old plantation replaced the system of hiring out convicts. The Notorian Portsman Plantation existed until 1972, all right, with this practice still in continuation, all right? During the post-Civil War period, Jim Crow racial segregation laws were imposed on every state, with legal segregation in schools, housing, marriages, and many other aspects of daily life. Today, a new set of markedly racist laws is imposing slave labor and sweatshops on the criminal justice system, now known as the prison industrial complex. Okay? Just to give a quick update about where we are today, at least 37 states have legalized the contracting of prison labor by private corporations, okay, that mount their operations inside the state prisons. Okay, so these factories, these slave factories, these sweatshops are right inside the prison. Okay, and 37 states have legalized this contracting. Okay, and probably more today if you look. All right, in one of these places, a convict can earn about $2 per hour. Okay, $1.25 an hour, probably working about 8 hours a day. All right, and the let's just say between 1980 and 1994, all right, profits went up from $392 million to $1.3 billion. Okay, for private industries invested in the prison industrial complex. Some of these corporations, we know them as IBM, Boeing, Motorola, Microsoft, AT&T, Wireless, Texas Instrumental, Dell, Compaq, all right, Honeywell, Hewlett-Packard, Nortel, Lucent Technologies, 3Com, Intel, Northern Telecom, TWA, Nordstrom's, Revlon, Macy's, Pierre Cardin, however you say that, Target stores, and many more. Okay, 100%. This is a startling statistic, and then I'll move on and let you read the rest of the article yourself. But 100% of military helmets, okay, and many other weapons of mass destruction and of defense are made in the prisons. 100% of military helmets are made in the prisons by prisoners. Okay, the overseers are the COs, okay, getting paid good money to oversee the construction of this and to oversee the labor. All right, the continuation of slavery. And just a quick commentary on that. What the benefit that comes to the local community when a prison moves in is astronomical. The school system benefits greatly. The taxes that come from the new corporation that's moved into town, the jobs uplifts a local economy astronomically. Just look at Marathon, for example. I believe it's Moravia, for example, and look at the other towns, even Elmira. Look at these towns that have a prison, okay, and how, and before and after, and how it boosted their economy, all right, and gives many, many, many people jobs, all right, and then builds the rest of the infrastructure in tow, and builds their culture, essentially, all right, as well as the literal money that is made by these private corporations that invest in the prison industrial complex, all right? And that payoff is part of the reason that this continues without any adversaries, all right? Aside from, like, let's say Angela Davis and the Abolish the Prison campaign, with the few students that participate in it until they graduate and then start participating in the enslavement of people, okay? The next thing is probably the most important piece of the Crossroads Critical Commentary newsletter, and that is suggested things that we can do in the community to combat the injustice system where it does exist, okay? And to promote alternatives in any way we can, and an equitable alternatives that we can create and be autonomous in implementing for our people, okay? One is to organize low-cost or free bus rides to persons living in our hub, and to give a ride to people that are incarcerated in the Elmira hub, okay? Two is to set up and take a young person aside and drop a little knowledge, build with them, drop some wisdom, and remind them that they are the future, okay? So instead of relying on the police, instead of relying solely on after-school programs and social organizations, and the funding is being cut for them every day, so this is even more important now, but we need to step up and raise our children and our youth ourselves, okay? And be accountable as adults to our children, and have them be accountable to us and respectful on both ways, okay? Another way is to join the prison abolition movement in New York State and in the country. Again, Angela Davis is a great connection for that in the academic world, all right? George Jackson Jr. is a connection in the world of the people, all right? There's ways that we can continue to reach out and to support the abolition of prison and the prison industrial complex in the United States, okay? You can support the Books to Prisoners program, again, located at Autumn Leaves, above Autumn Leaves, next to the Worker Center. All right, you can highlight STAMP, Southern Tier Advocacy Mitigation Program, and the work of STAMP, and support them and what they do and reaching out, and support OAR and what they do and reaching out to the incarcerated people and connecting families with family members and friends that are incarcerated, okay? You can support Cornell's prison education program at the Auburn Correctional Facility, all right, and that's a program that was implemented through Cornell by Paul Sawyer, and then through the many incarcerated people of the Auburn Correctional Facility to get education program and legitimate college education and prep into, and CLEP and other preparatory exams into the prison system, so that people, while they are incarcerated, can get an education and spend time well and wisely and come out much more prepared and better able to compete in the job market, all right? Another thing is to highlight books and reading circles, all right? Great books are The Rich Get Richer and The Poor Get Prison, all right? And there are many other books that deal with the prison industrial complex, have reading circles and talking circles around the injustice of the, and again, not alone talking circles, but have talking circles in conjunction with radical action, all right? Similar to the promotion of the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Build that took place in Ithaca, New York, 2010, 2011, okay? Again, you can support inmates, stories being heard through media outlets, through offering a blog to the prison, by visiting prison and trying your best to get stories shared, and having a pen-pal relationship, and sharing the stories of the incarcerated inmates and stories of people who have been incarcerated when they come out, okay? And supporting people who have been incarcerated and getting jobs along the lines of what Gino Bush was doing, all right, with many different programs, and had people coming together that had us, one, supporting many people in getting jobs that have been incarcerated, but also putting up a physical monument to the work of Martin Luther King Jr. In supporting Black and brown people and supporting the people in poverty in the United States and around the globe, okay? If you are a lawyer or have legal advice, you can offer pro bono services to people that are going through struggles in the court system, whether it be family court, criminal court, okay, or civil court, all right? We can demand that our mayor and our legislators lobby to our New York State senators and U.S. Congress to adjust and amend the 13th Amendment, okay? We can also stand up and defend ourselves, all right? and force accountability to our civil systems and of our civil servants, okay, the pigs essentially, the police, by utilizing our Fifth Amendment right to bear arms in self-defense and to organize, okay? We can do this. That is our legal right that we still do have, and we can utilize these rights as they still exist to defend ourselves. This is even more relevant after the murder of Sean Greenwood and the lack of accountability or justice in terms of to the murder of Sean Greenwood, and to, more importantly and more relevantly, to the system that creates and perpetuates murderers in the police and the murdering and attack of black and brown children and young adults and adults. Okay, as is clear, every day there's a new story of a black youth or a young adult or adult that has been abused or beaten, or even an elder by the police somewhere in the United States. All right, and again, stay tuned to Overstanding Ithaca on Facebook for more updates, not to bring us down, but to remind us of the reality of what we are fighting against, and the reality to utilize our rights, such as the Fifth Amendment and our amendment right to organize and to gather in public to defend ourselves, all right, by any means necessary. Okay. In addition, we can organize support groups that attend court trials in support of families and people who do not have support, and we can go and just be a physical support in court. There's nothing illegal about attending court if you have the time, and supporting people in making the most informed decision about how to move forward in their own case, okay? Or in acquiring some competent counsel in Ithaca, New York, and Tompkins County, all right? And finally, there are many more suggestions, but finally, for now, we can create a Black business coalition or covenant that will work to employ black youth and ex-cons of color, and to support the Circle of Recovery by Mr. Gino Bush. Okay, these are the types of things that we can do to build our own infrastructure while we work to get away from a fiat capital-based market system. Okay, and again, this is the most relevant and important segment of the Crossroads Critical Commentary newsletter, and I would hope that people dote in this section, and that people go back and implement, and that we see in the future in this community and in the United States some of these suggestions implemented towards having peace and a better world. All right. Next, we move on to supporting and to giving a shout out to the Southern Tier Advocacy and Mitigation Project. Okay. Again, we gave a little history of STAMP. I'll read a little snippet, and you can again go and look for more information on www.overstandingvision.info. Okay. STAMP was established in 2005 in response to the frequency with which young people are referred to juvenile and adult court system by schools, parents, service providers, and other community stakeholders. STAMP challenges pollution, criminalization, exploitation, and incarceration by encouraging self-respect, empowerment, leadership, and self-determination among young people, adults, and families most affected by criminal justice and environmental policies which disregard individual needs, erode community assets, and undermine planet security. Okay, so that's essentially the mission and organizational info of the Southern Tier Advocacy and Mitigation Program, STAMP. So again, contact them and support them as much as we can, please. And that is one definite way to get involved and engaged immediately in defending ourselves against the injustice system. All right. Next, we went on to highlight a poet by a local youth in the community who's now a young adult. So feel free to look into that expression. All right. And then we had an interview with a young brother, True. Many of us may know him as Kenny. And he, essentially, it was an interview with a young king from the nations of Gods and Earth. And True essentially gave his word on the injustice system, injustice, and the radical change that needs to take place for us to stand up and support our future in being free and equal and equitable and receiving and demanding equitability in the society. All right. And one major suggestion that came forward was our move and promotion towards finding your self-direction and being right and exact. Okay. I'm going to let you read that as well, but I will give a little, I will read the snippet of a highlight from the article in the words of True, K. Kenny. We must understand that the dynamics of the environment that a lot of us grew up in is not meant for us to be successful in all of our creative powers and nature that we possess, because it's not activated, nurtured, or made to help you grow. Our minds have been reversed to make us think that we are the cursed people when we are not. Coming out of that mental enslavement, we can see things for what they really are, not what they appear to be. Now we can push for the highest bar and not settle for less. Okay, those are from the words of True, very true words, right and exact. All right, and look into the article more. Much more knowledge was dropped. Okay, and at one point we did have an interview with True highlighted last season in the Crossroads Critical Commentary TV show. So keep looking at overstandingvision.info. This entire interview with True will be up on the website again shortly. All right. And just want to point out before we move on that True is a brother that's from Ithaca, New York. He grew up here, okay? And he can share his story with you himself when you see him out in the street, or when you meet him at a community center, when you meet him at a community event, or see him in the school district, or you see him around raising his son, okay? But he grew up here, and his experiences are from the heart, from the soul, and they're coming from his experiences growing up as a young black man in Ithaca, New York. All right, so it's very relevant to our context of now and where we are today. All right, suggestions that True made before I move on would be to continue to have community centers that are relevant in work and actually look to support black and brown children. At this point, black and brown boys definitely need assistance and support from our black and brown men in our community in general. All right, educational schools, community schools, empowering opportunities for youth, and taking responsibility for our community, in our community. All right, and ultimately, the acquisition of peace equals knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. In the words of True. All right, and thank you, Brother True, for sharing. All right, the next article we move on to, all right, is Brother Huey P. Newton, all right, who was the Black Panthers chairman, one of his chairmen or founders, essentially, he wrote an article that essentially defined the prisoner versus the political prisoner. All right, so how we can be incarcerated in the United States as black and brown people. Either we can be participationist and kiss ass, essentially, when we go and we get locked up in the system and do our best to get out as fast as we can because they will release us because they see our need and our yearning and our ability to participate. So they have no fear of us going out and challenging the system. To the contrary, they see that we're going to go out and either commit another crime and be incarcerated again and continue to make the money, or go out and work in some low-wage job, all right, and not challenge or rebel, okay, or be part of the revolution and supporting our people, all right? So these participationists are allowed to leave early, all right? They get good time and such, all right? The real political prisoner, these people are usually housed in the SHU unit, special housing unit. This is solitary confinement. Okay, and even further extensive the SHU unit, solitary confinement in solitary confinement. Okay, and these people are the prisoners who are not going to bow down, who are not going to be brainwashed, who are not going to allow themselves to be stepped on and humiliated and manipulated. Okay, and these are the warriors. All right, these are the revolutionaries. Okay, and that's how you are a political prisoner. You continue to be self-directed, to be right and exact. All right, while you were in the system, while you were incorporated within the depths of the system, okay? And Huey spells it out beautifully, much better than I can articulate right now. So again, look into that article. All right, it's relevant, it's pressing, okay? It's relevant today. So as I've been talking, there's been clips of the artwork that the Black Panther parties had created back then, intermixed with, I believe, some of Pink's work, local artist from Ithaca, all right, who supported Crossroads Critical Commentary newsletter. It's political commentary, political work, political characters, and it's relevant, makes a point, and you can see the deep connection and the depth of the Black Panther Party and their global connection. So their connection to our exploitation in the United States and how we are exploiters around the globe, okay, and how both must cease to exist immediately, right? We also highlight in the article our fighter, Gino Bush. Okay, talk about the work that he's done in the community. All right, so look into that. Essentially, Gino Bush is a local hero and a role model. He represents the Black and Latino people of the community on many advisory boards and executive committees, and notably the Tompkins County Workers Center. He's also a founder of the Circle of Recovery to support ex-cons in adjusting back to life in a supportive way and being a supportive role model to the youth and to myself personally out here in the community. So we thank him and wanted to highlight him for what he does every day, right? Then we have the people's vernacular, which is very relevant. Okay, it's the definition and the explanation of the terminology that we use throughout the newsletter and that we use throughout these video commentaries. Okay, we define overstanding, okay, at the time as to reestablish an understanding through radical recreation of a given reality or social construction. An example is to not only fix the car, but to recreate models of transportation, okay, or an approach to movement in spaces as human beings. All right, so that is to overstand anything. All right, we define whiteness. Whiteness as the socio-economic and psychological promotion, practice, theology, and ideology of white, so-called European Western as the dominant group with access to benefits off of any structure engulfed, okay, or in relation to it. All right? Eric Dyson, we put a definition in there. He defined whiteness better than I could. We put it in there, and it's relevant and fits into the overall theme of our definition of whiteness. Okay? Political prisoner is again defined by Huey Newton. We defined it here off of Huey's definition in the article. Who is a person who is incarcerated as a result of social political exclusion. The exclusion is based on a systematic oppression through economic, social, and political means, mainly people of the First Nations and the African diaspora and Latina nations, and the presumptions that we exist in an illegal space and thus justify our imprisonment. Okay? Prisoners of war, okay? An incarcerated, or unincarcerated essentially, who is consciously and actively engaged, it is an incarcerated person who is consciously and actively engaged through radical political, economic, and social action against current structures of oppression. Okay, for example, whiteness, the global Euro-imperialistic structure, etc. Okay, now essentially these are new definitions, adding to, evolving on Huey P. Newton's definition of the political prisoner, establishing his definition as rather a prisoner of war, and a political prisoner as someone who could be in prison or not in prison, the literal prison of incarceration at the moment. Okay, the SHU unit that was referred to earlier, Special Housing Unit, is an entire prison that enforces solitary confinement of so-called belligerent prisoners, mostly political prisoners and prisoners of war specifically. Okay. Then we define cracker, the term cracker, all right? An oppressive person with interest in and willing to participate and embody whiteness, as was just defined, as their guiding ideologies, practice, promotion, and social organizing tool. Everything and person that utilizes racial construction or socio-ethnic political hierarchy in an effort to oppress non-European people of the world. That is a cracker, okay? Look into it. We clearly are not saying it's just white people, just black people, anything. We are clearly defining the term, okay? It's the People's Vernacular. More has come of that. More, you can find out more of the People's Vernacular and little video clips.
There's a set going strong, a lot of things going on. The man of the hour has an air of great power. The dudes have envied him for so long. Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. Hard to understand, but a hell of a man. This cat of the slum had a mind, wasn't dumb, but a weakness was shown. so was